Hello guys, it's David here. I'm just doing the London recap for today. It'll probably be pretty short and sweet. Not much really happened across the two pairs, to be honest, but I'll go through it all anyway from the top down, and hopefully it might benefit from seeing my thought process. So on euro dollar, obviously mitigated this supply here, so it's possible we may see a deeper pullback from this. Obviously I've had my eye on this zone here. It's in the discount of the range, swept liquidity there, and it's where the demand came in that caused the break structure and this IBOS. So it's very likely price is going to come back here at some point. Obviously we don't know when. So we've come into supply. It potentially could be the catalyst for that, but obviously we don't know. Now at the moment we still have this protected internal range. We still have this refined pivot within it. So we may just pull back into here and keep pushing up. We don't know at this point on the daily. But yeah, it is possible that we will pull back to the discount, but we obviously don't know when. So that's the daily. The 4 hour, you can see we come into the 4 hour and daily supply up here. You can see with this huge sweep of liquidity yesterday, I think there was a news announcement, and then we got the bearish 4 hour IBOS. So at this point 4 hour internal is bearish, but the swing is still bullish. That's the most recent swing break structure. So that huge sweep of liquidity is usually a pretty decent sign that we're going to see a more complex pullback, which obviously may line up with the daily. If we are to see the more complex pullback from the daily supply. So obviously got the bearish 4 hour IBOS, and then sort of we pull back into the newly created supply. So massively favoured sells today to sort of target this low sort of first of all, and then sort of this sort of refined demand as well. Obviously 4 hour is still bullish. We've had the 4 hour IBOS, that's the first sign that we're getting the complex pullback. But we could come into this demand and just push higher. But personally, I'm inclined to think that this sweep is pretty significant, and then we may see the deeper pullback towards the daily demand down here. And you can see here we've tons of liquidity printed there as well. Like, that's a very corrective move up. This is pretty much the last unmitigated demand in all this. You can see that's mitigated all. That's actually unmitigated, but I just marked that on to extreme. Should have had that on. So the extreme, obviously that's a nice place to potentially look for the continuation of the bearish 4 hour trend, but obviously it has this inducement from it as well. But overall, just how corrective that was, it would not surprise me if sort of this gets a run and then we sort of see a more complex 4 hour pullback or daily pullback, which should obviously be the bearish 4 hour trend. But obviously a lot can happen, a lot has to happen for that to play out. It takes quite a bit of time, but coming into session this morning, just favoured sells just in the kind of the bearish IBOS, pull back into supply, and then sort of just to target the next leg to the downside. That was pretty much what I was thinking based on the 4 hour. The M15 then, you can see we've multiple sort of breaks of structure in both directions. A bullish boss, another bullish boss, bearish boss, bullish boss, bearish boss. So again, that just sort of typically signifies indecision in the market. Don't know why this isn't showing in there. Yeah, so obviously a lot of sort of false breakouts, sort of the trend changing frequently. Obviously this here was the huge liquidity sweep on the 4 hour, so even though we got the close above, sort of keeping an eye on the 4 hour, it was sort of pretty clear that we're probably going to come to the downside again. So I'll just use bar replay coming into session. So I was mindful following the break structure. This is obviously the pullback, so expecting the pullback to the premium at least. We didn't quite mitigate the EQ, which wasn't ideal. You know, usually price does pull back the EQ, and also it's not something that I use massively in my trading, but it was sort of where there was this imbalance as well that was likely to be filled. So ideally I wanted to be selling from this supply at the extreme. Obviously it had no inducement, which is what the little box signifies, so I would have been waiting for a strong M15 liquidation within that. Obviously a bearish M15 shock or IBOS is what you're looking for to signal that prices may be going early and isn't going to come up here. And you can see we've mitigated this little flip zone here, just the wicks. It had inducement in front of it that high, so Said wasn't quite in the premium, which wasn't ideal, but you can see it flipped this supply to the left, or demand to the left, so it was a valid flip zone. You can see the reaction, so it makes sense why price reacted there. But essentially coming into session I was waiting for here or a sign of bearish intent, which obviously would have been the M15 shock there before looking to get involved. There was a lot of euro news this morning as well, so to be honest I wasn't really trading. I was happy enough to just sort of let it play out. I had my alert set here just to see if price came in, but I was sort of aware with the major news I thought maybe there might be some like sort of liquidity sweeps here and sort of false signals, so I was happy to wait for the extreme. If we just play it on, then just swept the high there by a couple of micro pips. And then got the bearish chalk. It's a pretty significant chalk as well. Like, this is a pretty significant low. It's not technically an IBOS because price didn't close above the high, but it's a pretty significant low to get taken out. Like, it's not like we got like a little inside bar chalk here. It's like a pretty significant pullback in M15, so I will put more weight on that than, you know, in some cases you get very insignificant chalks where it's literally just like an inside bar gets taken or something, whereas this here, it was a pretty significant low, so it was a nice bearish confluence. And then obviously the sweep, and you see decent amount of bearish momentum there. Technically we had a bullish chalk here, giving us fresh demand to trade from. Personally, we've mitigated the 4 hour supply. M15 was bearish, hadn't quite mitigated the EQ, which wasn't ideal, but it was likely that this bullish chalk was only to facilitate the pullback into this supply. So whenever price sort of mitigated this supply before coming back in here, I personally wouldn't be looking for an entry from there. If just dropped down to M1 to see what happened here, you can see we come into the supply. As I said, there was no inducement from a POI, so I would have wanted to see a strong liquidation, either clear equal lows or a fake chalk. I've played on, you can see we got the chalk, got the V shape, and then price pretty much just tanked. If you wanted to be super aggressive and you sort of entered on that little wick flip there, you might have got tagged in there, but as I said, I wouldn't have been interested in it, as that's a very minor liquidation, and as there was no inducement from the M15 POI, I would have wanted to see the strong liquidation. Then we come into the M15 demand that caused the bullish M15 chalk. Now, which I have to remember is it had the bullish chalk, but then by the time price came back into supply, we had mitigated the sweep zone, the supply zone. So it was likely that the bullish chalk was only to facilitate the mitigation of this, and the price is going to continue lower, considering we had mitigated the 4 hour supply and that the M15 was bearish overall. So personally, buys were far too aggressive for me there. Again, there was no inducement from the POI. You can see it was pretty straight push up, so would have waited for a strong liquidation in any case. Let's just play it on here. You can see there's no strong liquidation there except very minor low, didn't achieve anything. We mitigated the extreme demand, which is a nice out of confidence, and then it's a decent V shape. And then let's play it on. Would have been a quick loss. So yeah, the buy there, the lesson is that pretty much buying against the higher time frame intentions. You know, we'd mitigated the 4 hour supply, and M15 was bearish, so it was always likely that this low was going to run eventually. So if you're buying from a weak leg, as this was, as it failed, it caused a chalk, but it failed to cause an IBOS run on. So pretty low probability to be buying there, in my opinion. And yeah, probably would have been no entry on the sell there unless you're sort of very aggressive with it, and yeah, potential loss there. But as I said, I didn't take either of them. I was basically waiting up here on account of the news. Put it on. So yeah, coming into New York now, obviously I've had another sort of IBOS here, now with this pretty clear supply, so could mitigate this here and then sort of come lower to run the weak swing low. But have to be mindful of the fact that as the EQ hasn't been mitigated, it's possible the price could push up higher to do so, so this could all fail and we could come up to extreme potentially. But yeah, that is AU. Hopefully that sort of clarified my thought process, and then AU was even more dead. So obviously AU is bearish, the brick structure. Internal is bullish. You can see we have these IBOSes. Now we mitigated this supply. It's high probability supply, as I've been saying for weeks, months. It swept liquidity. It flipped this demand, that's your field reaction, and then it obviously led to this break of structure. So high probability POI would not be at all surprised to see price continue the bearish trend and run this week low, but obviously a lot has to line up for that to happen. We had this IBOS, which is also a failed reaction, so that's potentially a sign of bullish intent that perhaps this supply is going to fail. As you know, usually when you have a high probability supply like that, it just sort of, price comes into it and it just goes. So again, that's potentially a sign of bullish intent. Have this sort of liquidity printed here, was a lot of sort of trendline liquidity, so that could get smashed. And then we do have these sort of two POIs here that potentially price might switch bearish internally to sort of mitigate these here before potentially continuing higher. But again, that's going to take quite a lot of time to play out. We had this demand here, which obviously following the IBOS, that was the obvious POI for price to pull back into it and then continue higher, but obviously that failed. And then we got the bearish chalk. So the bearish chalk again, potentially your first bearish signal that we may be coming lower, but we're still contained within this protected internal range, so that's a protected internal low, so it would not be at all surprising to see price continue higher from here. But yeah, that is AU, potentially the first bearish signs in the daily, but still bullish internally, so it could still continue higher. The 4 hour then, see, swing is bullish, this break structure, but then we mitigated this sort of refined 4 hour supply within the daily supply, and then you see we've a lot of bearish momentum, bearish IBOS. So again, another bearish signal, but this is still the protected 4 hour low, or the strong 4 hour swing low, so 4 hour is still bullish, so it would not be at all surprising if price just continued higher. It's only whenever this low goes and we get the close below here that we can sort of say with confidence that we're bearish, and then we can start looking for sells with confidence. Yeah, so not ideal to be looking for sells, as we're basically in the discounted swing range and we're selling directly into a 4 hour strong 4 hour low. So yeah, probably overall favour sells, but not that clear in the 4 hour. Ideally want to see this go before looking for sells or a pullback into one of these supply zones. That is the 4 hour, and then the M15. So obviously this was the M15 break of structure yesterday. Had this sort of pullback here. Obviously didn't get anywhere near the EQ, which was here. We also had this sort of pretty clear supply. It was nestled in the 4 hour wicks as well. So this morning I was looking to see if price would pull into here, potentially look for a sell, but yeah, just not ideal to be selling at this point just because we're deep in the discount and we haven't got anywhere near the EQ. But obviously we are bearish overall, swing and internal, so the path of least resistance is to the downside overall. This morning, I'll take this back. So coming into London, we'd had this bearish chalk. Again, not ideal that price failed to close below, but you can see this little demand range failed as well. So that was your order flow, although small internal, whatever you want to call it, was technically still bullish. When we spiked through the range, then that was the order flow shifting bearish. So obviously had this, nothing massively clear here, like had that inside bar, not really a zone I would want to trade from. So what I did was the extreme sort of mitigated, nothing clear, so just jumped up to the M30, and you can see there was a pretty clear engulf candle there. So that was pretty much how I drew my zone there. So yeah, wasn't massively enamoured with sells at this point because we hadn't even mitigated on to the left here. Even if we had mitigated those wicks, which is where the demand came in to cause the break structure, then I might have had a bit more conviction in it. But to be honest, I was pretty much just happy to let this play out and see how it went. Played on, didn't quite mitigate the extreme, and then had this at this stage. You got the close below this here, so that was your small internal break structure. So then obviously this was the obvious POI to look for an entry from. Could have potentially come up here as well, but sort of would have favoured here at this point. And then just play it on. Prices started to trickle down then. And yeah, this isn't ideal to sort of see price sort of struggling to break lows there. So overall, obviously the path of least resistance is the downside run this low, but it's very possible that we will see a deeper pullback up towards the premium. So coming in New York, I'm not really massively enamoured with looking for buys or sells at this point. Yeah, I'm pretty much just happy enough to let that sort itself out, and then if we get some protected internal structure or small internal structure potentially play the bullish pullback, then I'd be more inclined to look for that there. But I'm sort of happy enough to let sells play out at this point, as it's even possible we might come down here and sweep this low, and then we'll sort of get the more complex pullback up to the premium. But yeah, not massively nice, not massively clean price action, so sort of happy enough to just leave that alone, to be honest. Yeah, so that's EU and AU. Hopefully explain my thought process quite well there. Hopefully somebody has took something from it. And if you have any questions on, just hit me up in the Discord. And have a good weekend, guys, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.